folks, and welcome to another Flycast Partners webinar. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host for today. And today we are presenting on EPM, ISM, and Neurons. This is our part one of a three-part series of our virtual lunch and learns. And this is a joint effort today between Ivanti and Flycast Partners. So we've got a couple of folks on their side. They're going to be presenting on the technical side. We've got folks on our side presenting on the technical side, and we'll get into those folks a little bit later. But before we get started, let me introduce Flycast Partners. Flycast Partners offers best-in-class implementation services and training in IT service management, IT asset management, IT operations management, and enterprise service management using IT practice. Our professional services team can easily help you, whether that be remote or on-site, especially in what's going on in today's world. That's pretty important. We have well over 55 professional services engagements. And as an organization, we have over 1,100 regular customers throughout Canada and the United States. I encourage you to reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278, or visit our website. We have folks standing by Monday through Friday, ready to chat with you and help you out with anything that you're looking for. During today's presentation, please type your questions in the questions section of this GoToWebinar, and we will try to get those questions answered for you with the time that we have allocated. I'm not going to take any more of that time away, and we're going to turn this over to Flycast Partners' very own account manager, Richard George.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks, Rich, and thanks everybody for joining today. I want to focus on the title of our presentation today: Ivanti Endpoint Manager, Service Manager, and Neurons, Making IT Easier for You, Part 1. Today, we're going to focus on the core components of the Ivanti portfolio around Endpoint Manager and Service Manager. The focus of Neurons and showcasing that technology, we're going to put mostly into the Part 2 that's going to be happening next week. So again, just wanted to set the expectation for today and walk through a couple slides here. So there's a lot of existing Ivanti and Flycast customers that are on the webinar for us today, but there's also some new faces. So I'd like to just share who Ivanti and Flycast are briefly, just to give those new people an idea. Ivanti was established in 1985. It's been through a couple name changes since then, of course, as well as quite a few acquisitions to get to the point of where we are today. But since 1985, Ivanti has maintained a high-ranking position and a leadership position in the IT industry. This is not just according to industry analysts like Gartner and Forrester. This is also according to the thousands of customers that use the Ivanti technology worldwide to manage millions of endpoints and millions of tickets every month. Lastly, I want to point out the large partner network that Ivanti employs to help with scalability and expertise around the solution set. I say this because I'm very proud to announce that Ivanti Flycast was Ivanti's Partner of the Year. The way that we earned this award was due to direct customer feedback, and the way we accomplished this was, quite simply, we do it a lot. We've implemented it thousands of times for a large customer base, and we approach it with a best practices methodology. That, combined with Ivanti's best-in-class technology, makes for a great customer outcome. Lastly, I want to point out our monthly webinars, such as the one we're doing today. We appreciate you attending, and we want to encourage you to keep attending and let us know what other type of feedback that you'd like for us to present. Okay, so the focus of the presentation today is around a unified and integrated IT environment. We're talking about two sides of the house here: endpoint management and service management coming together to make IT easier for you. So managing those endpoints, whether you're pushing out packages, pushing out patches, or managing workflow, we want to talk about what that looks like in integrated fashion. As part of the new launch of Ivanti Neurons, Neurons is that hyperautomation platform that overlays across the entire solution set to allow for self-healing, self-discovery, and self-serving. Again, we're going to touch on that in Part 2, but we want to talk about the underlying components today. For those of you that are not aware of Ivanti's unified endpoint management, that gives you the ability to discover and inventory those devices on your network, push out software packages, push out OSs to bare metal machines, remote control those machines for troubleshooting, power management, and of course, reporting on all of that and maintaining compliance, as well as managing mobile devices. Talking about Ivanti's service management and the capabilities, as I mentioned, it sits at number one when you talk about Gartner's critical capabilities. And from enterprise down to lower level companies, across the board in the entire matrix, Ivanti comes out number one on the Gartner critical capabilities. On top of that, leveraging the 13 ITIL processes, you get quick time to value, and it's also available in a flexible deployment of either cloud or an on-premises solution. So talking about the different scenarios that we want to run through today and the advantage of the automation that creates. First scenario, we're going to talk about automating a patch that comes from the result of a change. So you receive this change request that ultimately needs to make a patch happen to a machine or a group of machines. We're going to talk about how we can automate that with the integration of these two solutions. And in the same sense, we're also going to talk about deploying a piece of software. This scenario is going to arise when an end user needs a software request or an application to perform their job. So they go to the service catalog within ISM and they select that piece of application. From there, if they've been pre-approved, we're going to show you how EPM can interact with ISM to deploy that piece of software and install with little to no human interaction. In the third scenario, we're going to talk about just in a general form the overall benefits of housing EPM data in the Service Manager CMDB. There's a lot of power there from just being able to understand ownership, ticket history against a certain asset, as well as linking that asset to an incident, a problem, or a change. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to Jeff and allow him to demonstrate those different scenarios.
Looks good. You're good?
All right, perfect. Yeah, thanks, everybody. My name's Jeff Hance. I'm one of the technical architects here at Ivanti, and I'll be presenting today and walking through those different scenarios. I thought it was important to kind of give you a little bit of background on the automation piece. If you're a customer, you're already pretty familiar with our endpoint management and service management if you're using those. But a lot of customers aren't familiar with the automation platform, and that if you are a customer, you already own this. You can take advantage of it. So everything I'm going to show you today, if you own EPM, service management, you own the automation and the ability to tie that in between the Ivanti components. So just real quick, I want to go through just a couple slides. And this automation fabric that we're going to talk about today has the ability to do a lot of different things. The focus today is going to be on what we can do with the Ivanti applications, but know that this can do a lot of other automation tasks for you, like provisioning VMs and other components. That is not part of the license we give you with the automation standard that we give you to integrate with Ivanti, but can be extended to allow you to tie this into third-party applications and call scripts and do cloud automation, IT process automation, all the things that you see there. This kind of breaks down the components that we can integrate. You have this automation layer that kind of sits in the middle, and then the different Ivanti products down here below can be called or used to make a call into one of the other Ivanti solutions. So today we're going to talk about tying it into the service management and the endpoint management with those first two use cases that Richard mentioned there. There's lots of built-in tasks. The advantage to using this automation than building your own scripts or using APIs is we've built the tasks to do most of this work. So the content I'm going to show you today, the first one is a little bit unique in the patching. There was some configuration I did for that, but on the software side, most of that content is already built for you, and you'll have the ability to leverage that with the automation platform. So just want to give you a little background on that, and now we'll just kind of go in and show you these things inside of the product. Real quick, let me log back in here. So the first use case is around the change, right? I worked support for many years. I was an admin, and I did lots of patching. And one of the frustrations always was that I couldn't automate that. I had the ability to go and set the change, but once the approvals happened and I tied the CIs to it, I had to go manually go in and do that work. Well, what I'm going to show you today is the possibility for you guys to be able to automate that So once we put the change in, the workflow engine and service manager and the run books and automation in the automation platform will take off and do the work. So let's just go ahead and create a new change. And we'll call this patch, and we're going to say we're going to patch server. I'm going to make this a significant change just so I can have it go through some workflow that I have built on that side for the approvals. And then I'm just going to come over here and link a CI to this. And the one we're going to use is my failover server. Grab him and throw him in there. So right now what I've done is I brought up a change form and I've set it up to that I need to make a patch change to this failover server, right? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put this out into a requested state and hit save here. And you'll notice that I have this patch scan results tab. And what this is it said, oh, you put a machine in there that you want to patch. So I know what that is. What is it that you want to patch again? Because the first thing I need to do is I need to go scan that machine, verify what patches it needs so that I can make a decision. Do I want to patch that now, get my approvals, and go through the process? So I'm just going to say all patches, and I'm going to hit save here. And what will happen here in a second, maybe a minute or so, is it will go ahead and fire off the patches scan and give me the results back. What's happening in the background now is I've basically set this up. It knows the parameters for that server that I want to patch. So it's now with automation patch, sent that over into the patch tool to go ahead and run that scan. It'll bring the results back. And once I get the results back, what it's going to do next is create a task for somebody to verify those patches and make sure that they're approved to be patched on that server. So we'll give it another minute here and maybe less than that, hopefully, and it should bring back that scan. It is pretty quick once it runs. But you know how the demo gods are, I got to wait for it to happen here. So that'll happen. And what also will happen is it will create a change schedule for that server. So you can see here that it's showing me that this server has patch windows, approved patch windows, and lockout windows for that. And really the only time this technically is allowed to have changes done to it is on Saturdays between those hours. But what we're going to do with the automation, it's going to take care of that and set that up. All right, perfect. So what it did is it came back and said, hey, I've run the scan. I found that you're missing these patches on your device. And this time you told me not to deploy those patches outright. So I didn't have to go into the patch tool, set that up. The automation layer just went ahead and did that for me. Now, what should happen here if I refresh my screen is I should now have a task that says, hey, Jeff or whoever is assigned to this, you need to go in and approve those patch scan results and make sure that these are okay to patch on that server. So I'm going to accept this task and I'm just going to go ahead and complete it and pretend that I actually looked at it to save me some time. In my demo environment, I'm forcing them to put in the time that it took them to do that. And what happened there is it went ahead and set that task to completed. And what now happened, you can see that it went ahead and said, hey, I'm going to throw this into a pending approval state. I'm going to schedule this guy for you automatically. And I'm going to go ahead and send the approval notification out for the approval. So you can see now I have an approval. If I come in and I look at the workflow, just so you can get an idea of what's happening here, is there's a change approval workflow that got fired off that says, hey, you need to get your approvals. And then there was also a patch scan workflow that fired off as well to go out and kick off the request for the scan results to do the scanning and then send those back so that they can be verified. So as part of this process, you can see they were both started and they're in a waiting state for the next thing to happen. So if I come in here and I approve this, and I refresh it here in a second, we should see that this should now go into a scheduled state. And you can see that automatically happen. And we won't wait for these patches to deploy because that could take a while. But the reality is what I just did there with that is I was able to go in, create a change. And most likely, if I wasn't lazy, I would turn this into a template. So all the information is already filled out. And then what it did is I was able to attach the CI And then once I did that, the automation and the workflows did the rest of the work, took the human intervention out from the scan side to do the scanning and deploy out those patches to that server. So we leveraged the workflow in Service Manager. We leveraged the integration in with Endpoint Manager to bring the CIs in so that we could tie those to the change. And then we leveraged the automation platform to go out and do the work to find what patches need to be deployed. And we ran through tasks to make sure those patches were approved. We got our approvals to go in and do this on Saturday or whatever day we chose. And then once that happened, that patch will just run on Saturday at whatever time it was set up to run. And that was all done with that automation layer. All right, cool. And if there's any questions on these, feel free to throw them in if it's specific to a use case. So then the next scenario that we're going to walk through is software distribution. One of the things I did all the time at my old job was when anybody needed a piece of software, we had the machine locked down. So the help desk would send me a request and I would deploy that software out with Endpoint Manager. So they would have to wait for me to be available to go do that and then deploy it out, right? So there was a lag in time there, and there's no reason for that in today's world, right? It should be something as simple as they go into a service catalog, make the request for that software. If there's approvals that need to be happen and license verifications, do those, and then from there we can go ahead and automatically deploy that software out using that automation layer as well. So in my scenario here, a user can go into the self-service portal. They can come into the service catalog, and if they're like, hey, I'm missing this software, I need this to do my job, they potentially could come in here and find that if we've made that available as something that they can request through the service catalog. You can see I have a couple different software options for this. I'm not using any licensed software, and I'm going to use something short and sweet so that we can deploy it out quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and request 7-zip. And when I do that, I have a simple form with some information that I need to populate in there, because potentially I might have more than one device linked to me. Typically what we'll do is when we sync the devices in, we look at that primary owner key that the Endpoint Manager collects for the device, and we'll try to map it to that user based off of that primary owner. So in this scenario, I have two different devices. I have a Win7 and a Win10 machine. I'm going to go ahead and deploy that out to my Win10 device and hit submit here. And what I should see now is I have a request that was put in, and it's in a submitted state to go ahead and deploy out the 7-zip to my device. But what I've done, just so I could show the approvals on this side, as well as I've forced an approval on any request for software. So you can see I have a request in here for 7-zip. And when I come into this, you can see that there's an approval waiting. So how did that happen? Of course, we're using workflow to do that as well. So the first phase is I have the approval workflow inside of Service Manager. And then once that's approved, I have the automation that's going to fire off to deploy that software inside of Endpoint Manager, right? So you can see in here, I have a job to push software out. And I'm passing the parameters around the device name, the package name, and who the requester was. So when I send that into Endpoint Manager, it says, here's the device name and here's the package that I need you to deploy based off of that. And when the job is done, it will hopefully come back and say that it was fulfilled and completed. And so you can see that in here that it's going to set the status as fulfilled. So that way that I can notify the user that that has been completed. So let's go ahead and override this approval. And with that, it should go ahead and override the approval here. And in the next step is it should go ahead and deploy that software out to the device. It's a small package, so it should be pretty quick to bring that down. But the idea is, right, hey, user can go in, can request a piece of software. So take your top 10 or 15 titles or whatever it might be that your users are using. And then they can go ahead and request that through there. The package has to be built inside of Endpoint Manager. As long as that's built inside of Endpoint Manager, then we can go ahead and deploy that out using the automation layer as part of that process. We'll give it a second here and see if it pops up. If not, we can go in and kind of walk through what's happening on the back end there. But the idea is we can do that for any software title that can be deployed out through the endpoint manager. And there you see that the software distribution has kicked off. So here in a second, I should see that I have, there it is, 7-zip is deployed out to that device. Now, what it's probably doing here is running an inventory scan at the end so it can update the inventory of that device and show that it was completed. And once that's done, it should come back and set the status to fulfilled so that I can notify the user via email or whatever process I want to use there to go ahead and let them know that that software is available for them to have access to now.
Jeff, we have a question if you have a moment for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want to know, is there a way for the user to request a list of programs like a shopping cart, or do the users have to select each program one by one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for that example, I think if I have it in here, we could do something more like this, where they have a form and they can have it. I have it in my other tenant, and I might be able to bring up. Let me see if I can show that real quick because we got time here. Let me go in here. Yeah, so absolutely you can do that, and I kind of knew that question would come up. For sure, we can set that up as a list, or it can be set up as a drop down or whatever you want there. But I think in my scenario here, in this one, I just have it set up as checkboxes where they can request the different applications that they want access to. And then what we can do on the back end, when that comes in, we can read that list of what they chose, and we can use the same concept to pass those parameters in for each one of those into the automation platform to then deliver that software out to the user. So it could be a drop-down list, checkboxes. That's just configuration and process on your side. Hopefully that answered your question. All right, cool. So we kind of touched on the first two scenarios, the first one being, hey, how can we automate the patching? And I've had that request come up 1,000 times when I talk to customers that own our patching and our service management. And obviously there's lots of value in that and automating that and making that process more simplistic, from the approvals all the way down to the delivering of the patches down to the user. And then, the software distribution, there's no reason that a user should have to wait for software. If it's something that's a standard software title in your organization and you don't deploy it as part of your image deployment, there's no reason that it shouldn't show up in the service catalog for them to be able to request that, and then have automation fire off the install of that software. All right, so the last component that we're going to talk about today is around how the EPM data can be used from a service management to understand, tickets that have been created against that asset, potentially problems and changes as well, and being able to understand the correlation between that data, so that you can get better statistics about, maybe we have a certain hardware model, a Dell, HP, Lenovo, whatever it might be, that we need to go back to the vendor and see why we're getting all sorts of tickets on that. So let's walk through a scenario here, and the guy I use for most of my demo scenarios is Michael Jordan, my favorite basketball player. And let's say that his PC is slow, right? Slow PC. And I think what we'll do when we go through the Neurons demo in part 2, we can show you how we could even make this more automated, that will tell you your PC is slow before you even know it is, using some of the Ivanti Neurons components that help us do self-healing and create tickets and service manager based off what we're doing from a real-time intelligence. But in this scenario today, let's go ahead and say he's having a connectivity issue and is working real slow. And what you'll see down here is I have a couple tabs that I've added to my form that allow me to look at some different things about this user. First, I can see all of their incidents. So I could come back and look to see how many times he's opened up a ticket around his PC being slow. And then the other one is I have the user asset view to show me the assets that are linked to Michael Jordan. And then from here, I could bring up that asset and look at the details around it. And I could look at any incidents. If there were any incidents that have been created around it, I'd be able to see that right here. But I also have the ability to look at all the data that I brought in from Endpoint Manager. So this is a connector that we have out of the box to bring in the data from EPM right into your SIEM-DB. So your analyst would have quick visibility into the asset. When was the last time it ran a scan? You can see the last scan date was yesterday. And then we can go ahead and look at the details about that asset. And then we could potentially have actions in here to kick off remote control, potentially have a one-off software distribution from here as well. You can see I have a launch Ivanti Neurons that we can talk about in the next presentation that we're going to do. Very excited about that product. What it can do for your analysts is just amazing to help them be more proactive and quickly troubleshoot issues. But in here, you can see I have access to that. Another thing that I wanted to point out is if I bring up another asset, a server, in here, you can see that I can also see the incidents that are linked to it. And these were created from events, so even tying into event management to bring back and create incidents based off an outage. And then I can see the, if I change my view, sorry, he doesn't have access as an analyst into the change view. So let me change this real quick. Grab my Citrix server again. And in here, I can see all the changes that have happened to the server over time. I could drill into one of these changes. And from here, I might find out that this change had incidents and problems linked to it as well. We could find out that a specific change created multiple incidents off of it. So the idea is, as long as I can bring that endpoint management data in for my, depending on what you're using it for, desktops, laptops, servers, mobile devices, I can now start correlating incidents, problems, and changes to it. And will give me the data to go in and dive into it and to say, hey, we made this change, it created 15 incidents, or we have this problem and it had 40 incidents related to it, and all those were tied to this one Dell, HP, or Lenovo model. So lots of power, not only in bringing in the EPM data, but the ability to take action on it and call into EPM from Service Manager, and also correlate that to incidents, problems, and changes as well. So those are the three use cases. I timed this earlier, and it took me a little longer when I timed it out in my own little world here. But the idea is we can definitely handle all three of those use cases. I think of the first two of those giving back time to my techs and my analysts to go do other things. If I can take and automate your patching process using our tools, best of breed, service management, and patch management, and then also have the ability to automate the install of software. I go create the packages, I build the request offering, call my automation from within service management to deploy that. I can automatically notify the user when it's done. There's a lot of power in that to give your analysts and techs more time to do the things that they need to do to help their users. And then, of course, the last one, being able to correlate that data inside of Service Manager, tie your devices to incidents, problems, and changes, has a lot of value to help you be proactive and understand you need to replace that asset. Why are these incidents being created for these assets when we do changes? Is our process broken? So significant value in that as well. So that's what I have. I don't know if we have any questions, Rich, that we can answer.
We have one more.
Yeah.
We do have one more question. We only use EPM. I did see Sharewell on the list of third-party applications that some integration can be done in. This is what we use for our support portal. Is there a way to make the installs happen when the Sharewell incident is the root of the ask for a piece of software?
Yeah, there is potential to tie it in with Sharewell as well. The issue that you will have with that is you would have to purchase our enterprise license for the automation layer, because the way we provide it for free is it's only to integrate between Ivanti products, right? So if you wanted to integrate it in with Sharewell, there would be an uplift to do that to the enterprise license.
Okay, and that's all the questions for now.
Awesome. So yeah, that's really all I have for today. Hopefully you saw value in those use cases. If after this you have questions, please follow up. Let us know, and we can follow up with you and show you more. We would love to show you the power of the synergy between our service management, our endpoint management platform. A lot of people didn't know about the automation layer. I still go out and bring it up, and my user base has no idea that they could take advantage of that. So hopefully we'll hear from you, and you'll get with us to help you implement some of these use cases we showed you today. So I'll turn it back to you, Rich.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. My apologies. But we have a lot to go over next time around, folks. So sign up for next week. Any questions that you have, please reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Chat with us on our website. We'd like to hear from you. Go to our website, sign up for the next 2 installments of this. They're really going to dig into Neurons next Thursday at 2 p.m. So it's an event that you don't want to miss. With that being said, I'm going to thank everyone for your time. Jeff and Kyle and Bobby and Richard and Amy and everybody that we've had on here. I do appreciate all your time and helping to put this together today. So have a great day, folks. Until next time.